Now, he goes on to say here, verse 7, and I will make her that was lame a remnant. Now, I want to dwell on this word remnant because, after all, down through the long history of the nation Israel, it was never a 100% nation worshiping God. I have my doubts that there ever was a time, even in the greatest period, when you could say they 100% had turned to God. Always it was a remnant, and God always preserved a remnant. It was actually a remnant that entered the land that came out of Egypt. The generation that came out did not. Their children did. They entered the land, a remnant. It always was that remnant that God saved, by the way. And even in the days of Elijah got very pessimistic. He said to the Lord, I only am left. Why, God says, you're not the only one. I've got 7,000 in these mountains that have not bowed the knee to Baal, but they sure were running from Ahab and Jezebel. I'll say that, and Elijah didn't know about them. And I'm of the opinion that two things are true. I think that today there are more believers than we think there are, because I think that there are some that are like that 7,000, and they're like the folk that never write to us. Somebody told me that only 1 out of 10,000 listeners write to any radio program, and he said he thought our program probably had a little better batting average than that, but not much. 1 out of 10,000. I don't know about them, I can tell you that. I don't hear from them. Elijah hadn't heard from them. They hadn't been writing to him, encouraging him, standing for God. But God had a remnant. He's always had a remnant. And there was the few there at the coming of Christ. Don't say the nation Israel rejected Christ. They did not. There was a little remnant that received him. And on the day of Pentecost, there was a great company that turned to Christ. But a remnant, always been a remnant. And very frankly, I think in the church today. Now, let me be very specific. I've made the statement, I think there are more Christians today than you think there are. I know several people that are not members of any church. They're a little bitter toward the church, the local church, and they don't join. But I think they're believers. And I think that in the church today, that there's only a remnant that really are the believers. I think we'd be surprised if we knew how few church members, and generally many of them that are active today in Christian circles, whether they're genuine believers or not. And we may be in a period today that's going to bring persecution. Or, as the writer to the Hebrews made it very clear, whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth. And every son that he receives, he's going to put you through the mail to test you, you see. If you've got some metal and you think it's gold, you can take it to the assayer's office, and I tell you, he'll really put the heat to it. But you'll find out whether you got gold or not. And God does that for those that are his own. And I'm of the opinion, very frankly, that all the church members, we've been in an affluent society. We've been in a period that there's been a lot that's been phony. There's been a lot of pseudo-saints that are around today, and they are not genuine by any means. They have not been born again. We saw in 1 John, there's a real test. You can put the acid on them and determine whether they're children of God or not. God has a remnant today, and he has a remnant in the nation Israel. There are, I think, more in the nation Israel that are believers than you think there are. Our letters reveal that there are many of them that are believers. You may not know about it, and I think that that's true today in any place. I think that today one of the things that's keeping many people out of good churches are the action of some of the members of the churches. I think we need to be very careful today as a member of a church that we're not shutting the door. At the same time, we're trying to talk about how evangelistic we are. We're actually shutting the door to a great many believers. This word, the remnant, is a very important word in Scripture Don't just rush over it. I read this again, verse 7. And I will make her that was lame a remnant, and her that was cast far off a strong nation, and the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth even forever. And that hasn't happened yet. This prophecy is not fulfilled, as you can see. Verse 8, and thou, O tower of the flock, and stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. And that kingdom has not come. And if they are back there today for anything, they're not back there for the kingdom. They are back there for the great tribulation period.